you who are on the other social media platforms that we do, from YouTube to Instagram to Facebook. It's been amazing having over 300 people joining us all across the globe in the different social media channels. So I'm really thrilled to have you guys join us today. My name is Yia, and I will be your host. Aubrey will be our speaker today. The Eros platform is a global community dedicated to exploring the power of Eros as a path to deeper connection, creativity, and personal growth. Today's speaker, as I said, is Aubrey Fuller. She's going to be talking about how to weave Eros into your sexuality, And so that's going to be a very amazing topic for all of us today, one that I personally am interested in, always to get that nugget from Aubrey. A little bit more about Aubrey. She is a deep researcher of the feminine and brings her knowledge of the feminine wisdom to her teachings. Aubrey is the holder of the women's movement, fearlessly guiding women into the path of Eros and liberation. She is a senior instructor on the platform and the lineage holder of the Eros Sutras. Aubrey has been walking the erotic path and practicing orgasmic meditation for 18 years. 18 years? 17 years. Yeah, because I remember I said I was 1 year behind last time.
17, going on 17.
17 years. And so without further ado, I give you guys Aubrey.
Hey guys, welcome to the call. We'll see who else comes on, but if we just have a small crew on the Zoom that I'm looking at, then you guys were the smart ones, because we're talking about sex today and it's going to be great. Okay, so let's see. I think one of the most important things to talk about when it comes to Eros and sexuality is that with the principles of Eros, with everything that you get from walking that path, exploring, researching, everything you get from your orgasmic meditation practice, if you have that, you're learning things that can be applied in any part of your life, in any realm in the world, and in any part of your life. I mean, these are principles that you can bring into how you relate with your purpose, your job, your career. These are principles you could bring into like how you approach your spreadsheets. Like, these are principles that you could bring into your relationships with your family. You could bring these principles into like the realm of psychedelics. I was talking to another area you can bring them in is into parenting, into even being pregnant. I was talking to a friend the other day who's 7 months pregnant, and she was like, in case you were wondering, all the principles of Eros apply to this whole experience perfectly as well, and are helping us immensely navigate this, and it's because they come down to relating, right? And they kind of give you this framework that has you think about how you're in relationship with anything. How am I in relationship with this moment right now? How am I in relationship with this person? How am I in relationship with how I show up in a space? How am I in relationship with how I show up with like my finances? Like, everything becomes a relationship that you're in, and the principles of Eros are like, they help you figure out relating, any kind of relating. And so a lot of times romantic relationship and sexuality are kind of like the biggest, hottest topics, like in our classes and stuff that we used to do. Like, I don't know, when we used to have the coaching program, I'm pretty sure the sex and relationship month was probably, could tell me, but probably the highest attendance. Ain't no one was going to miss that, because everyone's kind of most fascinated about bringing these principles into those areas. Partly, I think, because we get fixated on those areas culturally, but also partly because they're particularly sensational, charged. challenging. And so everyone's looking for any help, tools, advice, strategies, like formulas, anything to try to navigate those areas because they are, I keep wanting to say incendiary. They're a lot. They're a lot to navigate. And so, yeah, it had been a while since I had talked about sex, and I was kind of feeling into what I wanted to talk about today, and that sounded really fun. And so I was like, oh, I could talk about some of the basics of, bringing the principles of Eros into your relationship with your sexuality, into your relationship with your sex life. So that's kind of the background. I think I won't even say the second most important thing. I wouldn't know where to put this this is probably the number one most important thing, but the other thing I had to say first because context. But probably the most important thing to know is that it's a complete 180-degree shift with bringing Eros into sexuality, from like how the world hands us the map around sexuality, or lack thereof, a lack of a map. It's a 180-degree shift from what we're typically conditioned and raised and trained into and whatever, from wanting sex to deliver us a certain experience or to give us pleasure in a certain way that we recognize, or to have sex be like this thing that we can kind of like grab onto, maybe to like make a relationship feel secure, or like all these different ways that we kind of want sex to deliver to us in a really specific way, or that we want to grab onto it and make it kind of be a specific thing that is reassuring or validating or whatever. There's a lot of ways that we do that. There's a really cool sutra that I don't know if I'll do like a whole study of that sutra on this call, but I'll probably bring it up for a second at some point, and we'll definitely put it in the chat when I talk about it and you guys can check it out. But it's a little bit of what's that phrase? Like, what are those dudes? They were like bears. What is it? The bad news bears. Bad news bears. Bad news bear. The bad news, good news, it's really good news, but it occurs as bad news sometimes to like our sexual conditioning, which is it's not gonna real Eros sex isn't about delivering anything like that in particular at all. It is entirely for the purposes of liberating you and anyone else that you're engaging with sexually and anyone that they're connected to. And so what that actually, like, that sounds really great, it sounds great because it's connected to bodhicitta, it's connected to that desire that many of us who are drawn to paths like this have, of wanting to end suffering in the world and the causes of suffering and help get other people out of suffering. It is great because it is plugged into that, but it is not great because it's hard, because that's the opposite of what we've been taught about it, and so it's a completely different approach to sexuality, and it's very challenging for men and women and all genders. It's very challenging in pretty specific ways to the two types of the kind of the male conditioning and the female conditioning, whatever kind you received. But it's particularly challenging. It's specifically challenging to the genders in pretty specific ways. Broadly, women have to learn how to kind of not like try to use sex to get things, and then also not be victims to their own sexuality and their desire. And men have to learn how to slow way down, pay close attention, like actually tune into a woman's the flow of Eros through her body, and in the experience, and kind of come out of like performance or pretending to know, or like, you know, and that's actually really difficult because women will reinforce that till the day we die too. Like we will be right there acting like, you know, and, and being like, you're amazing, you know, like, um but that's our form of performance. So it's quite an endeavor, you know, it really is quite an endeavor to bring to really bring Eros into your sexuality. And um I think most people, I mean, myself included, for a long time, I wouldn't even say that I fully looked at sex for liberation in the face, like that truth, till not just in the last probably few years, like maybe it was the last couple of years. And I took it a little piecemeal before that, you know, and I would kind of cherry pick, like I'd be like, well, you know, in the beginning it was like, well, Eros, you know, it makes sex hotter. And so then that's kind of that's like the draw initially, you know, and then it's like, and then you kind of get through that one, you know, and then you're like, oh, it makes it way hotter and way more real, but it also, that's vulnerable, and that it makes it challenging also. Okay, I don't love that. Maybe do I just want to go back to performing? Like, you know, and then you find a way to break through that one, and you sort of go to the next level of the thing that it can give you. Um, and so, yeah, I feel like it wasn't even for me, it wasn't even until the last couple of years of kind of being like, what can I offer to this thing rather than trying to get something from it? And how would I really utilize it for liberation if I wasn't trying to get something from it and make it deliver something to me in the way that like I want it to, you know? And then I feel like I come from that place more often than not now, not always, but more often than not, I'm coming from that place. I'm kind of like rooting into that intention and that aim. Um, and then, you know, having my experiences and my explorations and my research from that aim. And then, you know, you learn things, you fall off the beam, you get back on the beam, you know, like you try different things. Um, but yeah, so I think that's actually the most important thing to know. Sex and Eros is for liberation, not for, I don't know, pleasure, reassurance, validation, um, to feel hot, to secure a connection with someone, um, to feel better about yourself. Like you might experience any one of those things or all of those things as like byproducts, but those are not the aim. And this path really teaches us to use sexuality for liberation and use sexual energies for liberation. There's a really cool uh, definition of Om that we use a lot, which is something like it's about harnessing the erotic impulse, um, harnessing it out of the sexual plane in order to be isolated and used, like isolated in the sense of being able to take the impulse itself out of sort of the whole realm of like what sex means to culture and sexuality and all of that, and using Om to harness it and isolate that impulse specifically to put it into, you know, reaching higher states of consciousness. If somebody has that actual quote handy, I know a lot of us keep it in our notes because for a long time we needed it on hand like constantly. If somebody wants to put that in the chat, that would be great. It's that one that has like unitive. If you search unitive in your notes, you will find it, I bet, because what other note would it probably even have that word, unitive consciousness or something? But I think about that a lot because that erotic impulse does get weighted down with so much stuff. Like it gets weighted down with all of our ideas about sexuality and all the things that we want it to be for us and all of the ways that we see ourselves inside of it, and all the ways, you know, that just, it gets very weighed down with our cultural ideas about it, everything we've ever been taught about it, you know, it gets, and then pretty soon that erotic impulse can be difficult to access because of all that stuff kind of on top of it. And so I like that description, because it's like, I picture, you know, this, it's like plucking the most essential thing out of the morass of all of that, and being like, this jewel, this is nuclear, these are like nuclear energies to be working with, plugged in properly to a bodhisattva vow of, or whatever, you know, your, however you relate to that in your life. Bodhicitta is what I call it. Plugged properly into that and utilized well. These are nuclear power, like nuclear level energies that can be used for, you know, a fast track to enlightenment, let's say, for you and the planet. You know, like if we were to use these things really well, they're capable of powering a pure intention all the way through, in a very deep, potent way. And so, yeah, that's what sexuality on this path looks like, is learning how to do that with sexual energies. So, okay, so that's kind of all the basics. And then, so this is the high level, this is the high level things. Those are the high level things. Okay, we'll start there. coming on down. Everybody just skate on down this mountain with me. We're gonna come out of the mountaintop looking down at all of it, you know, and just down in the valley of being a human who's just doing a human life, right? Having crushes on people, figuring out what the hell to do with desire on a daily basis, you know, making your finances work with your job every day, and, you know, having a little bit of free time for maybe some sex if you can, you know, like, and like, yeah, okay, all this high level stuff's great and everything. And then there's just the everyday human life of like, man, I just want some connection. Like, what's up? You know, I'd like some touch, some intimate connection. I don't know about applying all of those high level things into this little experience. I just want to fuck now. So, so kind of coming down into the valley, the valleys. And I love the valley so much. I probably like the valley more than the mountaintop, to be honest, but it is really fun to go up there. It's really pretty. But yeah, I love the valley, love just the humanity of it too, you know? And so, you know, when you're bringing Eros into sexuality, on just a day-to-day basis, I think for me, the biggest things that I had, that I focused on when I was first learning to do that, were probably goallessness, and the spot. So these are very specific principles as well. These are Eros principles, but they're also like very specific. This is where comes in so handy. I mean, gets this stuff into your body so deeply so that you can bring it into all these other areas like sexuality and everything. But goallessness, the spot, and probably like staying connected no matter what, something like that. Those three were probably my biggest ones that I had a lot of focus on in the beginning when I was first getting really, you know, beginning to step onto this path with some determination. And a lot of this was intuitive too, like not those concepts exactly, although they were somewhat, but like it wasn't like I like made a list, you know, I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to focus on goallessness and the spot. And, you know, like, and some people might though, like, I don't know, my friend Allie Wall comes to mind. Like literally Allie might've had a list. She might've had a spreadsheet. Like she might've had a graph. I don't know, you know, she's more that kind of person. But, I know for me, it was like feeling my way with my eyes closed, you know, through a whole felt sense world, and kind of being like, how do I bring this feeling that I'm getting from and my relating over here, like more into my sex life. And so I'll start with goallessness. So goallessness is a really, really big one. So I think especially for women. For men, well, no, it's not especially. That one really is equally all the genders. But there's just something from a woman's side of it, there's something incredible about taking off the agenda and taking off the goal of climax, or the goal of them climaxing or you climaxing, or just even the experience having to look a particular way, like cool, like a movie scene, or whatever, like being pretty inside of it, or like having to do these specific sex acts together or something. Like there was just so much projection put into my experiences. For me, I felt like I put so many goals into my sexual experiences without even realizing it. And goallessness was such a breath of fresh air of just stripping down. It was a concept that helped me strip down all of that extra, and just give myself permission to be fully present in the moment with someone. And what it did was really give me such a taste over the years for the way you can develop a taste for something. It helped me develop a taste for like nothing extra, whatsoever, like to a deep understanding that that just connection with another person is like such a rich, deep experience, and that every single thing that you would add on to that is like another thing that's kind of sitting on top of it, that actually can have it feel that much more difficult to feel. And so over the years, it helped me develop a taste for nothing extra, and just the like breathful experience of and I would call it emptiness if I was being Buddhist-y. But like that feeling of emptiness, just a pure state of getting to feel deep connection just as it is, without having to add anything in. And the way into that would be like, it could be during any kind of act as well. I mean, it could be like just touching hands or something, but it could be during anything. I mean, it could be like kissing, or it could be like in penetrative sex, or it could be in oral sex, or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's like when when you run your finger around the edge of a crystal champagne glass and it sings, when you get the exact like speed, pressure, intensity, and you just hit that note together, and it tends to have a lot of stillness in it, and it's just kind of this one drawn out music note feeling. And that is what goallessness could. I mean, that's kind of what Eros sex always takes you to, is like some version of that emptiness. But the goallessness was what had me be able to breathe enough to even get to that. And what's funny is I think women like like women actually know, women kind of are that. That's what we would do. Left to like our own devices, not our devices. I don't mean devices like that. But like the phrase, left to our own devices. That's like who we are and where we go naturally. Like if we can relax deep enough into a sexual experience, if we can relax deep enough and feel like invited, like our energy's invited out enough, we kind of, that's where we hit naturally. And we can take someone there. But by and large, we're too busy going along with the posturing that men are doing, pretending that they know what they're doing, and we're too busy performing and seducing making your ego feel really good and making you think you know where we should go, what we should be doing, and probably making you think that we really like DOMs or whatever. Um, and so then no one's really getting to that very often, you know, and but it's like, it's like the highest level of, it's the highest level of nourishment that you could possibly have, that both of you could possibly get to, that feeling of like total gratification that all of us ideally would like to get to when we have sex, you know, like you just feel like you took a bite out of the uh, the peach of the universe and it just nourished you from head to toe, filling you with life, you know, like that feeling of total gratification. It's that state is what gets you that. But like, you can only get to it by dropping off everything you think you're supposed to be doing to get to that. So it's a mind fuck, you know, for sure. And then the spot is, just knowing that there's a spot is such a life-changing thing, you know, like the concept of the spot is incredibly freaking cool and incredibly life-changing. You know, knowing that there's a spot on the clitoris, it's like the spot, you know, knowing that there's a spot at any given point in an experience, whether it's an or it's in sex, or it's like you eating your food, or like, you know, you're when you're like working out and you're doing yoga or something like that, and you're trying to feel for the spot of perfect extension, you know, like there's a spot, like there's a spot in life. There's always a spot in every moment. There is a spot, and you're either on the spot or you're off the spot. Being off the spot is not bad. Nobody's bad if you're off the spot, but it's like when you're on it though, it's kind of an incontrovertible experience. And so yeah, bringing that concept into my sex was huge. Like just knowing, like beginning to trust myself more when I would be in an experience with someone and I would be like, something, I could make the best of this moment because I'm an adaptable woman who will do that forever. But something's not quite ringing, you know, like something's not, like I just have this sense like we're just not quite on the spot, you know. And like trusting that and then speaking that, wow, that took me years. Oh my gosh. Like first it took me, I don't know how many years to like be like, oh, that thought that I'm having isn't just stupid or wrong. I am sensing a real thing. Holy shit, you know. And then another however many years to be like, could we do this instead? And then another however many years to get so comfortable with communication, to get so comfortable with the process of feeling for my desire and then communicating it, that then now it feel now in an experience with someone, it's much more like like friends collaborating, and there's like easy laughter and like joy, and it's not like you don't feel like either you're wrong or they're wrong, or like you can't, like it's more just like talking to a person like a person and being like, could we try this, like what about, oh, you know, I don't love that, could you go a little slower with this thing, you know. And so yeah, it took me a long time to get to that, but that's okay. I think it's the whole entire process is great. I mean, I really feel like somebody said once that recently, it was probably Eli because it was about pizza, but but somebody, no, I don't know, it wasn't Eli, but Eli actually probably wouldn't say this, come to think of it, because he's very particular about his pizza. But somebody said like, well, it's something about like, well, I mean, when you're eating pizza, even if it's not a great pizza, it's still pizza, you know. You're still having a pizza, so that's pretty cool. But I think about that with sex too a little bit. That's how it's been for me. Other people may not feel the same, and that's totally fine, but that's kind of how it's been for me over really my whole life since I started having sex at like 16 or something. Is kind of like every experience, even if it's sort of terrible, even if I hate it, even if I like cry afterwards because I had all these desires that I didn't say and didn't like it, you know, or like even if I feel like just stuck inside with my voice and can't get it how I want it, and leave the experience even more too messed than I went in, and all of that, like, or, the regret, like where you're like, it probably wasn't a super great thing to have sex with that particular person. Not really sure why. Maybe not a good idea, like the regret and all that way. Like all of that to me is great. Like I kind of treasure all of those experiences in a certain way. Anyway, the spot. So knowing that there's a spot and that you can be on the spot or off the spot is just a fantastic thing in sex. And then, figuring out how to communicate about that, like just feeling that feeling that the thing that you're doing in that moment, or the way that you're doing it, or how it's going isn't quite it, and that you're now going to feel into how you might like it, and then attempt to communicate that. That is just such a great process, and really, really helps bring Eros, principles of Eros, into your sex life. That's a great one. I mean, that one will keep you busy your whole life. Just that one process, and elevating it to the level of art will take your whole life. There's no ceiling on where you can go with that one. And I think the last one I said, for at least for this round, for this call, was staying connected no matter what. And I think that one's really closely related with the other two, especially with the spot. And the thing I said about collaboration, like treating a lover, when I say treating them like a friend, I mean that in the deepest sense. I don't mean in a reductive sense. I mean the exact opposite of actually respecting them and your connection enough to, remember I talked about nothing extra. For me, and you might feel different, but for me, and frankly in the principles of Eros, extra can even be considered all the roles that you play with each other, including husband and wife, or boyfriend, or whatever, and it's like, it's even discarding that in the moment of the sexual experience, in order to have nothing extra. And so when I talk about friend, treating them like a friend, what I mean is, like, that's the word I'm using for sort of that most grounded baseline place of nothing extra. And so it's like coming all the way down into that place, letting go of all of the layers, as many of the layers on top as you can, and like approaching it from a place of goallessness, so you can breathe, approaching it as a practice, like as anything can be, so you can breathe, and then feeling for the spot, what's on the spot, what's not on the spot, communicating about that to the best of your ability. And I think it's in the communication, it's in like keeping your body open, and then in the communication, where staying connected no matter what really comes into play for me the most. So like as a woman, I am trained to shut my body down when I don't like something. I totally get how we got trained that way. It makes sense on a certain level. I get it. We have call. There's call and response, right? Women have call and response, men have response. So you have call. And so like if you're sending out a lot of call, you're going to get a lot of response. And so it seems like a great strategy to shut that shit down, right? Like, I get that. I get how this got ingrained. But it turns out that you are like safest, most secure, and most likely to just not have anything happen to you that's bad. The more turned on you are, and the more out you are, and the more expressed you are. I mean, they do the studies, where they had like like predator people who were in jail for like predatory things, talk about what types of people they would target on the street and how they looked and how they carried themselves and stuff. So even just at the most basic level, you know, being totally out, bright, expressed, and having your system open and turned on is actually safer, just at a fundamental level. So we were given misinformation, bad map, okay? But in sex, you know, I got to utilize it to train myself to keep my system open, my body, to keep my body open, to keep my heart open, to keep my sense of approval for the other person and for what's going on in the experience open. In order to have the experience actually be able to like unfold fully and to give me more room to make adjustments or to change something or to feel for the spot or whatever. And so and boy, did I not start that way. Like I was like, shut down in a second, you know, like, and I know a lot of men have experienced this with women too. It's like, you know, you guys have had to learn all kinds of, you know, or women who have sex with women, like you've had to learn all kinds of tips and tricks for having a woman's system want to stay open, you know, and in the end, we're the ones who decide if we're going to keep it open or not. And this path really leads to the ability to do that. And I love that so much. So staying connected no matter what in a sexual experience to me means keeping my body open and my system open no matter what in the experience, not using shutting it down or shutting down my communication to communicate that I don't like what's happening, but instead keeping it open, staying in approval, keeping my heart open and keeping my approval open as well. And then communicating from that place my desires for where I would like the experience to go, or that I would like something to be different, faster, slower, left, right. Let's just stop this altogether for a minute. Take a break. Let's just lay next to each other, touching legs for a minute and just kind of feel into the next place we want to go. You know, whatever it is, right? Like it's taught me to see sex as a much more flexible, wide open experience than I used to. I think I used to feel like it was like one of those carnival games where you had to like get the ball through the hoop that you're not totally even sure is physically possible. You're like, is this a trick? You know, like to get the ball through the thing, but then the guy could do it. And then there was the goldfish you were trying to win, but you didn't really know if you wanted a goldfish, you know? I mean, it was like that. It was like it really felt like that. And I was like, if we go wrong at any point, it's a hair trigger situation. And then the whole thing is going to go downhill. It's just going to be bad sex. I'm not going to like you anymore. You're not going to know what happened. I'm never going to tell you. And we're going to go on about our lives just being like, well, that sucked, you know? And so it's come a very, very, very long way. And now I'm like, oh, you could turn anything around with like anybody, you know, anybody with any level of experience too, with these principles or with Eros. That's how it feels to me now. But that was hard won. That's been, you know, a big part of my practice for 17 years. And yeah, I really appreciate having that ground now in my sexuality. So those are the three that I'll talk about today. And so we can open it up now for questions and discussion or whatnot.
Thank you so much, Aubrey, for that rich transmission. For any questions or comments, go ahead and raise your virtual hand and I will call on you. Rachel Regan, go ahead.
Hello. Oof. Oof. What a great talk. I knew there was a reason I was here today. I had this first of all, I just love your the beautiful detail that you have for all that whole landscape of sexuality, the whole talk. It was like this diamond prism. Let's look at it this way, under here, over here, over here, and it's just a beautiful map of how all those different lenses that I feel like I know and recognize and how they relate to Eros principles. It was just really beautiful. And then I recently, in my own sex, I've had like these two different experiences. I have two lovers at the moment. One where I feel I always feel like, oh, I'm doing a great job. I'm like, this feels really hot, and I feel like I'm inside these principles, and it feels wonderful, and where I feel like that. And then this other guy who I feel so young. I feel like I can't get it out of my mouth. I feel like I can't say what I want, even though my voice back here is like, what is happening? Like there's some way that he shakes up a certain spot in me that's in my sex that's young, that's young and and I'm doing I feel like I'm doing a terrible job with him. And it's so funny. It's so funny to have these two experiences while I'm the same person. It's a kind of wild, really interesting place in my sex. And um I did wonder as you were talking, in those situations where it's almost for me, it occurs like there's two of me that are in conversation. Like suddenly I'm in a scene where there's a wisdom here and there's a new person here doing the touching, and like we're in conversation. And then sometimes I can't hear anything and it just goes meow. And so
Yeah.
And so in those moments, yeah, I was just wondering in those moments what you could share.
I think I've had in the last couple of years, I feel like I've had a new level of appreciation for um like this is how I say it to myself, okay? Um if you really understood how like vulnerable they are and how
Mm,
at our mercy they are, and how profoundly deeply they want to give you what you want, how would you communicate then?
oh, that's really great.
You know, I think about that a lot in the moment because it's just so funny because it's like sometimes like a man will just do something and you're just like, what even are you thinking right now? Like I don't even know where even did that, do you, like, that is just so out of left field. What are you even doing right now? Like, I don't understand. Or there's that one, or there's like the one where you've had countless conversations about maybe not having an agenda, right? Or whatever. And they're right there with you and they're like, yes, totally, totally. No agenda. I get that. I love that. Here's the specific reasons why I also want to have sex with no agenda. And you're like, okay, great. And then you get in the game and they've got an agenda and you're like, I hate
That's
you.
exactly it.
You know, and so they're from the women's side, like, of course, we're like
Yeah.
on this side being like, oh my God, you know, but to see through,
Mm,
to sit with that tumescence that comes up there and stay in your seat and
mm,
alchemize it and then come from the place of like even when they do things like that, even when it drives you crazy, even when you're like, what are you doing right now, they still are, they're so pure hearted. I just keep seeing it deeper and deeper and deeper in my
mm.
experiences. They're so pure hearted. Like they're just like, I literally want nothing more than to get on your spot and give you exactly what you want with my whole
Yeah.
entire soul. I want to give you what you want. But you're both working with all these things, you know, they're working with their conditioning and you're working with yours and everything. And so it's not as simple as just being able to do that sometimes. And then but when you're really coming from the nobility of being like a full woman who has who has like this, I think of it also like it helps me lately to think of my feedback as an offering, not a burden.
Oh,
How
that's
would I say
so,
it? It feels
oh,
like
that's
an offering,
great.
not a burden. Like if I assume they really want to know, sometimes I'll ask too. I'll be like, are you, do you feel like, I'll ask in a nice way, like with a nice
Mm,
voice. Like I'm like, are you open to feedback? Do you like that? Like, do you like when I give you overt feedback, communication, and adjustments? And they always are like, yes, yes. Even if you run into some ego or whatever, I think, yeah, like we want it so bad. And so then how do you communicate from noblesse oblige? Like, how do you communicate
mm,
from the nobility of um, having something so valuable to offer and knowing that they have such a pure heart and they just really desperately want to know anyway?
so gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, and then any other questions? Go ahead and raise your virtual hand. Russell, go ahead. Go ahead, Russell.
Um, just, um, I was just bringing in, or I thought I'd bring in just approval for awkwardness. And I think I was trying to demonstrate it just now. I am demonstrating it now.
You are a demonstration of such.
I mean, there's a quality of goallessness about it, and there's a quality of listening, and there's a quality of like, we're in this together. Where is it going? And it's like, hopefully there's like no agenda, like of, Zoom should be somehow better at reading my mind. Um, okay, that's it.
Thanks, Russell.
Thank you, Russell. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead and raise your virtual hand. You can also hop in too if you're not able to raise your virtual hand. Okay, let me see. We have one from Instagram. This person says, what do you do when it feels awkward and don't know what to do or what to ask for?
I love that. That's another thing that I've developed a taste for over the many years, because that used to be something that I would like avoid at any cost. And then now I really welcome moments like that because I think they're so intimate and so vulnerable and actually just so sweet, where you really, that's one of the places where I feel like we could feel each other the most. So I would actually just say that, like, I would just be like, I'm not sure where to go next, and I feel a little bit awkward. Do you have a sense of, do you have any intuition on where we go next, or should we take a break for a second and just kind of sit in the energy? Or I mean, you could say it however, but it's like I would just say that, like I'd be like, I'm actually not sure what I want next. And just actually sink into there's this beautiful, Shan, will you uh put put the Making Love Sutra in there from volume 4, and then and go ahead and put the Liberating Sex from Specific Conditioning one also from the sex section of volume 4. Yeah, those are good. But the Making Love Sutra is so long, you guys. It's so beautiful and so long. But the very beginning of it talks about how the dimension of sex is insecurity. It is insecurity. So you rather than doing the thing that we're conditioned to do and steering away from that feeling of insecurity, in erotic eros, in erotic sex, we actually steer intentionally straight into the sense of insecurity. or like awkwardness or that shaky feeling of vulnerability. We're actually like aiming for that, right? Because it is for this purpose of liberation. And that's also what's going to have us feel the most connected to ourselves and the other person if we actually allow ourselves to go into that spot.
Perfect. Thank you, Aubrey. Any other questions before we go to reflections? Okay, let me just check on social media really quickly. Okay, we're good. Okay, before we go into reflections, I'll give you guys a minute to think of a reflection. I wanted to let you guys know about our upcoming intro to OM course. And I know that some of you, probably a lot of you on Zoom, have taken this course before. Those of you who are online, you may be tuning in for the first time or have been curious about what orgasmic meditation is, but I'm not quite sure where to start. As Aubrey was saying earlier, OM is a practice where you extract and isolate the erotic impulse, and then you harness it for the purposes of liberation, liberation in your daily life, in your sexuality, in your relationships. So for those of you who are interested in that course, we do have one coming up pretty soon on August 9th. It is an online course that you get to tune in from anywhere you are in the world for this amazing course and learn a little bit more about orgasmic meditation. I'm going to put it here. It is here on Zoom. And then for those of you who are online, we will go ahead and give you the link so that you can sign up for that. Okay. And then we will go ahead and take reflections. So if you have a reflection, go ahead and raise your virtual hand. For those of you who are in social media, you can go ahead and just put it into the chat. Reflection is just basically something that you've gotten from Aubrey's talk today or from any of the shares throughout the hour. And I'm going to go ahead and start with Becca since she had to leave a little bit earlier. She said, "Love hearing the intricacies of sexuality and Eros and how you bring them to life, Aubrey. Love you all." And she had to leave. Okay, and then anybody else, go ahead and raise your virtual hand and I will go ahead and call on you. Russell, go ahead.
Two parts. One was, there were two sutras you referred to. One was called Making Love, and what was the other one's name?
Liberating sex from specific conditioning, I think.
Liberating sex from specific conditioning. And reflection is how easy it is to have conversations on Zoom with you about sex or high sensation subjects. It makes it easy for me to carry that into other parts of my life and just have a conversation without people checking out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Okay, and let's see. Let's take a few more. Let's see. Here's one from Instagram. Here's somebody that says, "I appreciate you talking about the awkwardness. I actually just experienced that recently with my partner last night, where we had this moment where I wasn't quite sure what to do next. And then we just paused and talked about it. And after we did, we felt much more intimate. So I appreciate you bringing out those pieces of sex because I feel like I always have to know what to do."
I love that. Thank you.
Great. All right, and let's see. Okay, that is all the time that we have for the call today. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And as a reminder, for those of you who are interested in learning more about orgasmic meditation, go ahead and click on the link in your various social media, and then it'll jump you right into the platform where you can learn a little bit more. All right, thank you guys for joining us. We will have a Eros community call tomorrow, same time, same place with Kevin Williams. All right, bye everyone.